Hello and welcome to Unleashed, the show that explores how to thrive as an independent professional. I'm your host, Will Bachman, and I'm excited to be here today with Andy Seay, who runs Seay Associates. We're going to talk about how to use Smartsheets on a transformation project. Andy, over to you. Let's get started.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Will. Really appreciate the time, and Happy New Year to you as well. It sounds like you're COVID-free. Makes one of us, but we're on the other side of it now, so we're doing pretty well. And on that note, Lynn can't join us today because she is currently sick, and we're doing our best to manage childcare with our nanny out since we have COVID in the house.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that you've got COVID. And by the way, for listeners, this is a video enhanced episode. So if you're listening to the audio, you will get more out of it if you watch the video, because Andy's going to be sharing a screen and showing me some slides and then actually showing me Smartsheets.
Yep, exactly. So, this is our standard qualification pack. Just to give a quick introduction to Seay Associates and what we do. Our firm is the two of us. It's me, so I'm Andy, and then my wife, Lynn. We're both McKinsey alum. I was in the operations practice. She was in MI. My background is in manufacturing, so I spent a lot of time McKinsey's RTS practice working with industrials clients and private equity. While she was at McKinsey, she was focused in healthcare. Lynn's a registered nurse, and she's got a deep background in healthcare and transformation in that field as well. We are both independent consultants based out of Dallas. We run our practice together, and I kind of speak for our team today in her absence. So if you have anything healthcare related, I would encourage you to reach out to Lynn. But if it's more focused in the world of PE or manufacturing, I would be your person to speak with. Our practice is geared toward, our firm supports transformation executives who are sick and tired of using Excel to track their transformation agenda. So we've been heavily involved in transformation throughout our time, both at McKinsey and as independent professionals. And one of the recurring pain points we've seen is that Excel is often used as the first line of defense to manage project management, or to manage a transformation agenda or value creation agenda within the world of private equity. And in our years of work at McKinsey, we saw McKinsey's Wave tools. We also are familiar with PMI, and we wanted to avoid reinventing the wheel. So what we did was we set to figure out how we could use existing off-the-shelf software that's pretty easy to get your hands on, isn't very expensive, and is low or no code to use, and kind of recreates some of the functionality that we've seen within McKinsey's Wave tool that's used heavily in the RTS practice. And so our approach using these tools is to de-risk the program delivery through avoid reinventing the wheel. We want to make this program management or transformation management as simple as possible. We believe in something called the Ohio Principle, which is only handle it once. So we believe that the ultimate form of respect to clients is to ask them to provide data once and only once, and then have that data flow everywhere it needs to flow, without worrying about translating it from one format to another, whether it's from Excel to PowerPoint, or whether it's from quarterly to monthly or monthly to annual. We just really want people to enter their data once, and then we'd like to see that data flow everywhere it needs to flow. We also believe in enhanced data security. The master spreadsheet world just doesn't work very well. If everyone's sharing one spreadsheet, you're often going to run into problems because eventually somebody's going to see something that they shouldn't see, or they'll have the ability to inadvertently change data that they shouldn't be changing, which is generally not malicious, but it's still inconvenient when it happens. And then finally, we believe in using tools that work. We're not trying to invent tools while we're working with our clients. And so we know that our tools scale. We've used them with clients up to 10 billion in revenue. We've used them with clients down to 200 million in revenue. So we know these work. And we believe that your transformation is not the one where we should be taking the risk to figure out if this stuff works. And so I think that to kind of orient this toward the focus of today's podcast, the goal of today is to show you how we can use Smartsheet and Power BI to effectively manage and run a transformation program. Well, I know this is an audio format. Is there any questions? Do you want to have any back and forth on this, or should we?
Oh, this is great. No, let's keep going. This is good stuff.
Excellent, great. So, just to tell you a little bit more about how we do that, about how our firm works. We serve clients across the full spectrum of transformation activities, but we really specialize in serving clients after their diagnostic is performed. Feedback from the market is either you're going to have often a very large firm run the diagnostic. You'll have a BCG or McKinsey or a Deloitte run diagnostic. You have a list of projects and they hand it off to you, and it's like, what do you do now? And that's really where we step in. We'll help you validate and plan your program, getting work plans down, validating the financial impacts, build business cases, and then of course we'll help you stand up governance to get the program running, setting it up so that there's a regular cadence, everyone understands what's expected, and of course we can be there for ongoing support as long as needed to really help you, give you arms and legs to make sure the program gets done. And also provide you with like kind of the inside baseball updates that you need to know as a transformation leader about the potential soft spots or weak points in the program. So that's what we do. Throughout the process here, there's different milestones that we would reach in terms of designing a Smartsheet instance and also building the Power BI dashboards that you're looking for. But we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like here in a few minutes. So. This is kind of a busy slide here, but it's worth explaining. It's about as simple as we knew how to make it. So our transformation management tools allow a user to enter the information once and to create a full suite of program documentation. And so reading from left to right here, a project owner would enter their data into the Smartsheet platform. This is an online collaboration platform that we're going to show everybody in a minute. It's going to look and feel a lot like populating a PowerPoint slide, but there's a lot of clever backend functionality behind it. So there's an interactive work plan module. There's a business case module that actually do math for you. It's actually going to format for you. It will automatically update project health for you. So gone are the days of figuring out how to fill a cell in red, yellow, green. Our tools will do that for you based dynamically on the inputs that you provide. The goal here is that this would enable a typical client to spend less time building slides. Most clients would prefer to spend time executing and getting things done than they would building slides. So Smartsheet and the way we're going to show you this configured here today really is going to enable users to enter their information and just not worry about PowerPoint slide creation, which is going to save a lot of time. The backend that we've developed will compile all of these individual user entries. You can have an arbitrary number of project sheets. So I've seen up to 500 of these sheets right here that will all be aggregated into a single database. And that database refreshes in real time, which means that there's never an issue of revision controls. And it also largely eliminates the job of compiling content for presentations. You don't need to, as long as people are making their updates in the place where they're supposed to make them, you as the transformation leader have visibility to the latest and greatest information. There's never going to be a, oh, there's another version of this on my desktop, or Jim made an edit and I wasn't aware of it. It's always going to be available and visible in the database. And that database is, of course, what's going to feed Power BI. And the beautiful thing about Power BI is, in addition to being a great BI tool, or I guess some people don't like Microsoft as much, but it's, if nothing else, a prolific BI tool. It's basically free. For most users who use Microsoft email, it's free. If you have a $5 a month MS 365 license, you have the ability to view and interact with dashboards in Power BI. You don't need to onboard Tableau. You don't need to figure out software licensing or get a sales rep on the line. It's free. It exists, and I can almost guarantee that you can view the dashboards without picking up the phone to any software vendors.
What if you're a Google, like using G Suites or Google Workspace?
That's a great question. We can share access, view-only access that allows you to interact with the data from our Microsoft accounts. That's no problem at all. The only issue would be that you could not modify the dashboards unless you have an account. And I think the entry level for those accounts is $10 a month. So it's pretty inexpensive, even if you do need to sign up for it. But the average consumer of the tools would not need to use that. Will not need to pick up the phone and call Power BI or Microsoft.
For listeners that would want to be creators of Power BI, listeners of the show, I know Tableau is relatively expensive. I forget, it's either 1,000 or 2,000 or something per license when I checked a few years ago. If you want to be more of a Power BI creator, do you know how much the pricing is for that?
The Power BI premium license is $20 a month. That's the top of the line license for an individual user. And if you're a company, like an enterprise user, and you want to create a premium capacity instance, I believe that the total fee is $5,000 a year, but that's across the whole instance. It's not per user.
Okay, cool. All right, let's keep going.
It's pretty inexpensive, and most people don't appreciate just how much access they have with their existing Microsoft subscription. Even if you just have a MS personal account, you can get to Power BI pretty easily.
Okay.
And the real benefit of Power BI, especially relative to some other dashboarding toolkits that are available, is that it really allows self-serve data. So that means, a typical client, like I actually just got off the phone with the client earlier today, big multinational, publicly traded company. I spoke with their finance team, and the CFO gets a pack of financial reporting once a month, and it has every possible cut of the data all in one place. So it's got the regions cut. Each region is cut. There's a cut by region. There's a cut by function. There's a cut that's monthly. There's a cut that's quarterly. A cut that's annual. A cut that's year to date. I call it the dictionary, right? If someone handed you a dictionary, all the words are in there. You can find them if you know how to use it, but it's kind of cumbersome. It's difficult to use. Why not use the Google? If you want to know the definition of a word, you type it into Google and it gives you the answer. That's what we're aiming for at Power BI. We can start with the highest level insights, and we can allow you to drill into the level of detail that you need that's relevant to you. And it presents it in a pretty nice way. I'm not going to say it's quite the same as a PowerPoint presentation, but you could actually embed a Power BI dashboard in a PowerPoint presentation and have all of the, the interactiveness of Power BI, but in the context of a Power BI presentation, or in the context of a PowerPoint presentation. So it's going to be much more powerful, allows you to drill in where you need the detail, what kind of ignoring the stuff that's not relevant. And ultimately, if data is easier to access, easier to analyze, it should improve the decision-making for leaders in your company and allow you to make better decisions. It's hard to put a value on that, but I think we all understand it can be quite significant. Anything there, Will, you think is worth diving into further? Our next step is
let's keep going. Let's look at the sheet. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, great. So I think I've got this hyperlinked out, but rather than take the risk that those links work, what I'm going to do instead is just go to Power BI. Okay. So this is obviously a demo. You'll notice that I've used Dunder Mifflin as our trial company, and all of the projects are themed based on the office. So hopefully that's entertaining to people who are big Office fans. But yeah, this is really the starting point. So for most clients, they're going to start on this page. We could build summary pages. This can all be customized to whatever degree you wish. This is what we call our standard instance, right? So it's got the basic information that you would need in order to see what your program is set to do. And so over here on the left, we've got pages. We've got impact over time, which obviously is going to show you the EBITDA impact of these different categories over time. We have a summary by category that shows what's forecasted versus what was targeted, right? So the forecast is actually going to reflect what we think is going to happen or what has actually happened. Often we'll make this an actual plus forecast number. The target's what we're originally aiming for. And you see that we actually manage that, or we're viewing that both for financial benefit and implementation costs. Over here, we've got a project health summary that shows, for the subset of projects here, what the EBITDA benefit is going to be, what the IL status is. This is our maturity scale that we use, similar to McKinsey's RTS practice. It goes L0 through L5, where L0 is an idea and L5 is a fully completed project. You've got initiative lead, you've got the sponsor. In this case, we have work center or location. the work stream that's a part of, and then of course you've got benefits health for 21 and 22, as well as your schedule variance. All of this can be cut based on whatever region is relevant to you. So if you're in charge of Akron, or if you're in charge of Albany, or you're a regional manager and you've got Albany and Nashua, we could easily show you the information that's most relevant to you. So the idea is that you kind of parse down what's most useful, and you can actually, if you hover over this, you can actually copy this image and just paste into a PowerPoint presentation if you wish, or you can just run the meeting directly out of Power BI, of course. Next, we have the RAID log. This is going to be, we call this, this is like unstructured work. Okay?
What's RAID stand for? RAID.
Yeah, so that'd be risks, assumptions, issues, and decisions. Different people use RAID with different definitions attached to it. You can also include assumptions there. You can also decisions and dependencies can also be captured here. They all begin with R, A, I, or D, so that's why RAID log is convenient. We didn't have to extend the acronym too much, but the purpose behind this is you really want to, like, at the beginning of every project, you can have a product plan, right, or milestones to kind of catalog how a project is progressing. As you go, however, there will be decisions, there will be unstructured work that arises as the project is executed. And that's the role of the RAID log, is to capture those items and then bring visibility to them so that people know what decisions, issues, or risks lay out there, and they can address them to ensure that the project is successful. And so obviously we have a very short RAID log here because this is just a demo, but you can imagine as a leader, if Daryl wanted to know all RAID items that are assigned to him, he could cut this to his own name. And you can see there's an assumption here that switching to organic pulp will only increase supply and not production costs. That's just an example. We could also just, especially for senior leaders, looking at all the risks that are facing a program can be very interesting to them. You can see which risks are out there. HR reports inappropriate actions taken by the initiative lead to optimize pricing. Oh, that's a reference. That's an Office reference for anyone who's out there. But the idea is that you can create visibility to all the risks facing the program at a glance. You can cut it different ways, and we can of course put date filters on this if you wish, so you can see all the items that are due in the next 7 days or month or quarter or whatever it might be. The final item that we have here, and then we'll begin to dive in a little bit, is just the project milestones. So if you were interested in seeing all the upcoming milestones for a specific project, you could of course select that here, and you would see this. You would see all the upcoming milestones without ever having to go into Smartsheet. So the idea is that you just have visibility. I don't have a date slicer in this, although I think a date slicer would be good to include here. So if you wanted to see the items that are overdue, you could easily see them here. If you want to see the items that are on track, you could see them here. If you only wanted to see the items that are due in the next couple of days, you can obviously sort it you can sort it whatever way you wish. And so the way to think about this, Will, is Power BI brings visibility. Like, it's a much more powerful dashboarding tool. But you might ask, how do I interact with this data? If I wanted to update something here, how would I do that? Well, that's where Smartsheet comes in. So let's just say in this case, we wanted to see how the project is going to add a third shift to plan ops. You can see that's running a little bit behind in terms of the financial benefits. So you might ask yourself, what's going on there? What needs to be done? So all I do is click here. This links out to Smartsheet. It's all integrated. And here is the project dashboard for this project. And so you can see here where the financial health, why we're showing red in Power BI. And you can see here with greater detail that this is the business case that shows where things are going wrong. It looks like, it's pretty much across the board under delivering. And if you wanted even more detail, you could click into it further. And we've got a full detailed business case here within the Smartsheet platform that shows us what was originally committed to. So here's the target, and then you also see the forecast. And so you can see here in what areas things have maybe fallen a little bit short of plan. And let me just go back here. So this is what we call the business case. And so the idea, this is actually the core engine of it. So for a typical user, you would use Power BI for your reporting and for your presentation development. But your main point of information entry is going to be here within the Smartsheet platform. So what questions do you think naturally arise from what we just discussed?
So this is all super impressive. For someone who has not used Smartsheets before, can you tell us a little bit about, what it would take to get to the point where you can create some kind of Smartsheet like this? Is there a lot of programming involved, or is it all just kind of no code, just, not much more than using Microsoft Excel? So for a capable Excel PowerPoint user who wants to learn Smartsheets, walk us through a little bit of the platform and what it would take to create something like this.
Okay, sure. Smartsheet does at its core begin when you first,
or maybe can you show us, is there like a behind the scenes of this? Is this what we're seeing right now? Is this
I'll try to describe this. So this is a dashboard. Smartsheet has essentially 3 different types of objects. There are sheets, there are reports, and there are dashboards.
Okay.
This is a dashboard. So a dashboard, you can see, is comprised of all kinds of different objects. If I've done my job, that's invisible to the user because only admins can modify dashboards. So I'm a licensed user. I pay for that license. What I do on behalf of my clients is create this dashboard in a way that is really scalable. So I can create copies of this quite easily, and it connects to everything it needs to connect to. If you are a first-time user, you're much more likely to begin on a sheet. So let me create a sheet here.
Could you show us like the sheets behind this so we could see what one that looks like when it's fully built out and so forth?
Sure. So this is a sheet that I built that I would call this the business case. And so if you were to start, cell A1, it would literally just look like an Excel spreadsheet. It would just be column 1 through 100 over here on the top. You'd have your row numbers. And in that respect, it behaves a lot like Google Sheets, or it behaves a lot like Excel.
Okay.
Most of the code that you see here has language that is similar to Excel. Is not exactly the same as Excel. There's some features that are better. There's some there's some features that are frustratingly not quite as good as Excel.
Right.
But I would say for the most part, it keeps up with Excel in the areas that are most valuable. Add, subtract, divide, multiply. That's all quite simple. A few features that I found to be easy. We have column formulas. So I don't think that concept really exists in Excel unless you use a table, but this formula that I have applied here applies to the full column, which is helpful. So if I add rows, that's easy. That's easy for Smartsheet to handle. A really wonderful feature of Smartsheet for those who have never really used it before is there's cell history available. So very, very common, especially in a transformation program. What changed? What's the source of variance? Can you tell me what happened? Not only can I right click and see exactly who changed the information and when, but I can also highlight differences based on the last hour, day, 3 days, or a custom date of my choosing. So if I turn this on and I wanted to see changes in the last hour, you can see that is updated here. That's an interesting feature. Rows can be locked in a much less frustrating way than Excel. So I actually set up automations within this sheet to automatically lock the target row. And so, again, this is probably a much more advanced sheet than most people would use, but I've got lots of attribute data that's hidden over here to the left that the average user does not know exists. And based on the IL status of the project, what I will do is I will lock. Once the project reaches L3, I will actually lock the target column, because the commitment is set once the project goes L3. So This baseline will never change unless someone who has admin access would actually allow them to change it or change it themselves. So there are lots of automations available up here in this. You can see here. So tell me if I'm losing people. I'm kind of going helter-skelter here because there's just a lot going on in the sheet. But automations are very easy to set up in Smartsheet, or maybe not easy, but it's not easy, but it is simple.
Okay.
Automations can be set up here using the automation workflow. You can see there are a lot of really simple, like preset workflows. So for example, and this can be modified, of course, for any client based on what they might need. But I just mentioned an automation where I lock these rows after the project goes L3. That's an example automation. Another automation that I might set up is when a project goes L3, I can actually have it trigger an approval request to an identified user. So let's see, if I created a workflow, there's a whole work or approval workflow that I can set up here to not only alert somebody, but actually request an approval. And that approval request actually has sent an email to an identified person, either a soft-coded value, so for example, the project sponsor, or a hard-coded value like Will Bachman. Mm-hmm. So it actually sent an email with and you don't even need to log into Smartsheet to do it, just says approve, deny within the email body. And it'll actually record that person's approval within the Smartsheet platform. And then there'll be a timestamp on that as well. So you can actually see when the project was approved and by who, which is helpful. Let's see, what are some other features here that are worth discussing? Much like Excel, it's got a conditional formatting engine. It's more challenging to use, but I'm thankful to have this all set up for myself now already. So we don't have to. The good thing about Smartsheet is if you set it up correctly, it should scale pretty well. But it took us a long time to figure out how to scale this well. So that's these are easy to do once. They're very difficult to do multiple times unless you have this configured the way that really makes a lot of sense. What other features are worth discussing? I'll show you this one. This is a good one. So within the project plan here, you'll notice that I have a full interactive Gantt chart over here to the right, which is impressive, and it works pretty well. What's interesting in Smartsheet is actually you can actually dynamically go back and forth between Gantt and grid view. So if you find the grid view useful, you can just use the grid view, and for many instances that's the case. But you can of course go to the Gantt view if needed. The Gantt view can easily be, you can either zoom out or zoom in, or if you have more precise timeline requirements, like you wanted to see, for example, quarters instead of months, you could do that. Let me just see, where did I have that as before? I can't remember. Hopefully it's like that. Because it's a native work plan tool. We have the ability here to set dependencies. It's a native feature. So if I said that the dependency for 21 is row 18, I can do that, and it'll automatically set it'll make sure that these dates are aligned with one another. Conversely, if my delivery date is delayed, let's just say instead of July 26th, it's August 15th, you'll see that the schedule variance will 21. The schedule variance will update accordingly.
So it seems like Smartsheets integrates pretty well with Power BI, the Microsoft product. It's interesting that Microsoft, I mean, Smartsheets is not Microsoft, right? Or they haven't bought it yet or something, right?
That's correct. They're totally unrelated software companies.
It's interesting that Smartsheets has a better product than Microsoft, I guess, has what Microsoft Project or something, but that doesn't seem nearly as good as Smartsheets. So Smartsheets, you can do workflows, which are not really in Excel. I'm trying to think about the differences between Excel and Smartsheets. I'm seeing like it has these automations, which are easier. It has the dashboard, which you could create in Excel, but it's not really a separate object, and it has these workflows. And it has what are the sorts of things that you could do beyond what you're doing, tracking transformations? What are some of the things, the use cases for Smartsheets that people should, be thinking about?
Oh, that's a good question. I've only really used Smartsheet in the context of transformation, but I'll tell you that that Smartsheet would tell you it could be used for like a finance team to track invoices. It's generally considered like a collaboration software. So I would characterize telling you what you could use. You could apply it to a lot of things. Like what could you use Excel for? Well, you could use it for almost anything.
Right.
What I think Smartsheet's well suited to do is to it's funny. Sometimes a client will come to me like they're so proud that they put something on Smartsheet, and I'll tell them I don't really like. I mean, it's great that they put in Smartsheet. It's interesting that they're learning how to use the software. I think that Smartsheet's value lies in first of all, the number one source of value is the fact that it's cloud-based, right? You can have multiple people working in the same sheet at once. In that respect, it's exactly the same as Google Sheets.
Right.
The thing that's nice about Smartsheet, though, is that Google Sheets, most companies don't have, you shouldn't be working in Google Sheets. You shouldn't be, because you're probably working on it under your personal account. Whether you realize it or not, you're probably logged in under your personal account. So that's a no-no. It's kind of like sending emails to people from your personal email for work. You just shouldn't do it. So the fact that it's cloud-based is great. And I think it has an advantage over Google in the sense that you very likely do not have a personal account set up in Smartsheet. The second area I think Smartsheet has an advantage is if there's any need for collaboration with people, not just working in the same way, but also having workflows set up, it's very good for that. And it's very user-friendly. So I think it's got a big advantage there. And I don't know Google Sheets product as well there, but they very well could have workflows, but I'll tell you Smartsheet's very much oriented around those workflows. So it's much more comparable to an Asana or a Reich or something in that regard. I would say another critical advantage of Smartsheet is that it's just so user-friendly. The average person can sit down Smartsheet and it looks and feels so much like Excel on day one that you're willing to put one foot in front of the other and learn how to use it in a way that I think a lot of people don't feel about some of the other project management softwares.
Beyond just sitting down and playing around with it, what have you seen as some of the best ways to learn it? You've probably worked with a lot of clients who are picking it up. Is there a good course on LinkedIn Premium, LinkedIn Learning, or is there good training right on the Smartsheets website? Or what's the best way to just become aware of the stuff that you wouldn't even know exists?
I'm a bad person to ask about that because I generally don't take a lot of courses. I learn by doing it. So I will generally sign myself up to figure something out, and then I will either figure it out on my own through just experimentation, or I have some partners that I work with who are Smartsheet, who are generally former Smartsheet employees who will help guide me through this. I also have a license, so I can call Smartsheet and have some level of support with them as well. So Smartsheet does have a nice suite of online learning. I'm reluctant to, in the middle of a podcast, to try finding it just because I don't really use it frequently. So I would be poking around the internet trying to find it. But there is a lot of Smartsheet training content out there. So it's there and it's available. And so for people who enjoy learning that way, that's available to them. One thing I do with all of my clients is I will build them a dashboard that includes, and I would show you, but it's all client specific. So I don't want to reveal client names here on the call.
Of course not. Yeah.
But I create how-to videos. So an example, a very common how-to video would say, okay, project owners, you've reached L2, which means that you need to build a business case and you need to build your project plan.
Yeah.
Let's talk through how to do that.
How do you make those videos? Do you use Loom, or what do you use to make those videos?
When Umbrex tells me a better tool, I will use it. I will record a one-person meeting in Teams, which is not ideal. It doesn't work the best every time. And there's just basically uneditable, which is pretty annoying. Yeah. I think also Windows G, is that it? Yes, Windows G. Most people don't know this. You actually have the ability to record short videos just by hitting Windows G. This actually works extremely well.
Huh.
The problem is it disconnects the moment you change windows.
Oh,
So, which was a very disappointing outcome for me when I changed windows like 15 minutes into a training video once.
well, the best tool that I'm aware of, or at least one good one, is Loom, Loom, which makes it super easy to record your screen as well as your voice. And it puts a little circle video of your face on there, and you can move that around, and you can record these videos, and then it stores them in an account online immediately. You don't have to upload anything. So that is a good tool for recording videos and sharing them either publicly or with your team. So
Sure. Okay. I've got that written down.
yeah. All right.
That would be helpful for me because Windows G is awesome until you have to change Windows. The moment you change Windows, it stops recording, and it doesn't really tell you it stopped recording, I don't think. So that's quite the surprise for me when I was doing my look back on that. That was annoying. Tough evening.
So, all right. And then how did you connect the Smartsheet to Power BI? Is that a quick and simple integration, or?
Apologies. Got a little cough here because of 1 second here.
That's podcast verite right there. So yeah, so how do you connect the Smartsheets to Power BI?
Great question. Oh, let's see here. I don't even have Power BI pulled up currently. So, this is a good segue into reports. So I will create a report. Let's just do that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment, just because some of my my client names are available in this navigator here. Let me create a report.
And we're doing this real time, listeners. So
yeah.
Showing you how quick it is to do one of these.
Okay. Okay. So a report. All right. I'm going to start sharing my screen again.
All right.
Real time. We're thinking on our feet, everybody, which is actually my favorite way to do this because it's just so low pressure. Okay. So a report, like I mentioned, there's sheets, there are reports, and there are dashboards. A sheet is kind of like a fancy spreadsheet. That's what I was showing everybody earlier. A dashboard is a place where you put multiple objects, which could include reports or text objects or charts or things like that. You can put those into a dashboard in Smartsheet. A report is what I consider probably the most interesting and value-added feature within the Smartsheet platform. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to stop sharing one more moment. Let me just get the source sheet here. Okay. So, all right, we're in business again. I will share again. Okay, so what I've done here in a report, you can select the source sheets. So a report at its essence is an aggregation of many sheets of information into a single report. And it is filtered and aggregated based on a certain set of criteria. So here I've selected a set of 48 sheets. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to filter this so that I'm only showing items that have a sheet name that includes the word fin forecast actual, which is the name of the sheet I know my business cases are on. Oops. So it has to contain fin forecast actual. Okay. So now you're going to see that this will parse down considerably. And then I'll set another filter condition such that I'm only going to show financial benefits. So in the primary column, I'm only going to show items that is one of, and I'm only going to select items that are, where is it? Financial benefits USD, which is the name of this column here. Okay. So now I should see a bunch of green because I have 8 projects. There's only one of these. Although I'm pulling from 48 sheets, only 8 rows across all of these sheets meet these conditions. And then what I can do is add columns. And let's just say I want 2021, 2022, and 2023. I've chosen a very bad, this is a summary row. So I probably should have chosen something different. Sorry, this is the issue with going real time. let me just say, I'm just going to remove this condition for a second here. This is actually a valuable thing to talk about, but I'm just struggling to find the right example to show everybody in the group here.
No, but it shows you how you can really play with this tool and create things on the fly very easily, as opposed to trying to do all of this in PowerPoint. I probably spent 25% of my time at McKinsey just updating
absolutely.
PowerPoint slides, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Change one assumption, and then you have to go through a 200-page document and change all the numbers that depended on manually.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this all, shoot, let me just say data entry. Let's just do general info. That's actually a good one here. I know we're going a little bit long here, but hopefully we can make this work. Okay. So I'm going to only show sheet names that is one of or contains, and we'll just search the word gen. Okay. So now I'm only pulling sheet names that say general info. As you can see here, I've got the product number, and then these columns don't exist in that data. So I'm going to just add some different columns here. And let's just say I want IL status. I want IL status. I want sponsor, executive sponsor, and I want work stream. One of Smartsheet's got its little quirks. It's kind of funny that way. But what's interesting about this? Okay, cool. So we got something useful here. So this is now looking across 48 sheets. And when I set this up for clients, like these reports ultimately end up being hundreds and hundreds of sheets. So I'm pulling from a full universe of all the data that's been created for the project. The benefit of having individual sheets is that you can have individual ownership. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But in essence, like every single object in Smartsheet can be shared to a limited audience with different levels of permission, which means that only a specific person, like for example, maybe only Jan Levinson Gould has access to this sheet. So it's her home. She can put all of her information there. It's only hers to edit, but then we get visibility to it centrally. And then by aggregating that, so not only does that make life simpler for her, it also allows us really, really precise and accurate data control so that only she has access to it and visibility to it. We then centralize that. And then what's really cool about it when you have the central view is I can actually update. So for example, if I wanted to update, like, oh, I know this project isn't, procurement, it should actually be growth. I could actually update this and that will actually push back to her source data. So even though I have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sheets of data across the whole program, I can make centralized updates as needed if required. And that can be useful in some instances. I won't do that here, but that's how that would work. And the way I feed Power BI is I build reports that are structured the way that I need them across all the sheets. And then I feed that report, which looks something like this, into Power BI. And then Power BI, this is a very database friendly format, so I can then post-process it in Power BI. And then I set these reports up to be dynamic such that if I were to see, I only have projects 1 through 8 here, and I can actually sort this quite easily. Let's say by the primary. So you see I've got projects 1 through 8. If I added a project 9, it would dynamically append itself to this database. So there's no need to re-aggregate. So what's nice about this is that when we get the format right, and by the way, with clients, that's one of the main areas that I need to focus on with them is I need to make sure that we're collecting the right information here for the source data. Like what are the fields of information you want to collect? Once we have that right, I can go ahead and recreate copies of this like an arbitrary number of them, and it will continue to append to the report that we built. When it appends this report, it automatically gets reflected in Power BI. So if I added a project 9 to this, it would show up in Power BI within an hour. So it's all very scalable and easy to run once you have the design decision set, and it saves lots of time for people. Like I said, we've used it with a number of clients already, and the response has been quite positive. It saves quite a bit of time, and it reduces a lot of the headache associated with Excel-based reporting.
Okay.
What else can we talk about? Do you want to talk about anything else with respect to Smartsheet or Power BI or?
Smartsheets, do you know off the top of your head how much it costs for both the editor kind of license holder like you, as well as if you want to share it with clients, if they have to pay or if they get free access?
Yeah, great question. So a typical client, if they're working with our firm, would probably require one Smartsheet license, like a full user license, and that's about $300 a year. And that's usually for the client champion. That's the person that would need that. Now, of course, the bigger the client gets, the more people need to start having the ability to. Free users can edit data. Editing is free, so any user can go in here and type whatever they want in here, and that's totally okay. It's only if you wanted to edit a report like this, that's what requires the license. So if you want that license, that's $300 a year. Most of my clients allow me to handle that for them. And so you typically want one person there who's got a little bit more flexibility. So that's $300 a year. The basic license is free. And we can also host all this for them within our Smartsheet environment. So that's of course the default option. If you have if the client has an enterprise plan with Smartsheet, what we would do is we'd build it in our environment, and then we transfer it to their environment, during a transition period at the end of an engagement.
Okay, cool. Well, this was a super powerful tool, and it looks like for consultants that are doing some kind of collaborative work that requires tracking a lot of different initiatives, maybe some workflow, it's a tool that we ought to become familiar with. So, Andy, thank you for giving us this demo. This was fantastic. For people that want to find your firm online or follow up with you, where would you point them?
Great. Of course, we're on LinkedIn at Seay Associates, and we're also at seyassociates.com.
All right.
Reach out to us that way as well.
Fantastic. Well, we will include that link in the show notes. Andy, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Will.